Good evening, all. On behalf of ISTD Indore chapter, I, Dr. Anu Kande, welcome you to the first session of our monthly webinar series. I now invite, before inviting our resource person to share with us today, I have a small introduction about him. So, we have the privilege to introduce our resource person for today, Mr. Mohan Kamath. Mr. Kamath has a diversified experience with passion for service, delivery, and learning.
Good evening, everyone.
So, may I go ahead and explain?
Yes, please. Yeah.
In the last 29 plus years of his experience, he has enjoyed working where status quo is challenged and strategic and innovative solutions are designed for breakthrough performance. I now have the honor to invite Mr. Kamath to address the gathering. Sir, please.
Good evening, everyone. I think it's a pleasure to be talking to a group which is an enlightened group, because I believe so that the HR group normally holds, they are the torch bearers to everything that happens in an organization, or they bring in the change in the organization. They are the holders of creating a culture in an organization. And as we see what is happening around us, whether COVID or pre-COVID or situation as we had post-COVID, I think culture is one of the big things that's going to hold or make a big difference to everyone's lives. Right. So let me briefly also share with you the organization that we have created, and this is something. Skillmart is a brand which we worked on for the last 7-8 years. Then prior to which I was with the industry, like most of you here, primarily into manufacturing and service on the process strategy side, as well as leading organizations on the operations, and skilling as well as creating breakthroughs in performance is what something what we wanted to focus on. So we are looking at putting up a platform here where what we work on is purely into consulting and training, and anything that can enhance performance. And I'll talk to you certain areas where we focused more, and that's what we worked on. I would prefer if this session goes interactive, so please use your chat box wherever you feel you have a question, or wherever we get into any interactive element. So what you see here is the top 3 areas where we get into consulting is primarily for any size of an organization which wants to get into breakthrough level of performance. So we have various partners with we work. Like Manford is an organization which is into primarily research-based behavioral science of the last 25 years. So we do leadership coaching and training using the Manford platform. The most popular European model, the EFQM, is what we use for assessments on people, process, and system side. And then there are solutions where we strongly believe that a lot of simple solutions are possible simply by understanding the way things work around us. And we've been able to do a lot of solutioning for many teams and simplifying their work areas, as at the same time making them more effective. Generally, solutions, what you see in products, are more efficiency driven, whereas what we focus is purely on the effectiveness of solutions. So that's the consulting part. Then there is a large area which we focus on is the operational excellence part, where things like project management, lean management, or even standards and audit of standards. And one big area which we picked up where we focused a lot more in the last 5 years in creating a complete vertical is what we call as in the area of EHS. And you might have heard about EHS, it's environment, health, and safety. And we believe so strongly that whatever quality was going through about in the 90s, and it took almost 20-25 years in India for quality to establish itself. And today people don't say why do we need quality, but it's a given. The same thing is what EHS or environment, health, and safety is going through. And hopefully with the COVID happening, there will be a lot more focus on the occupational health and health of employees and people around. Safety was another area. We'll talk about it more when I say what I mean by safety. And similarly, there is a larger piece which is actually already hovering on us, which is the environment part. You have the climate change, you have the Kyoto Protocol, where even India has signed up for certain commitments by 2024, which is not very far. And those things are going to be the future impacting things where it will hit every organization. It's not about manufacturing or service, but every one of us will be impacted by these changes. But there is very limited awareness onto that. So moving ahead, so that's the area why we picked up EHS. And hello. Yeah, somebody has a question.
No, sir. Accidentally, there was a mic on. I have muted it.
Okay, no worries. Okay, so this is where I would want some of you to answer this question. And you can unmute and talk. I think that I'm okay with that. What percentage of people in any sector do you think question the status quo or the whichever way that is things are working for it right now? Any organization, that whichever organization that you belong, what percentage of people do you think in your organization, how many people question the way things are happening? Any numbers in percentages if you can share, or even if it's a guesswork for you based on your experience, it's fine. Anu, can you read out the chat box? I'm not able to see when I do a slideshow.
Sure, sir. DN Mehta sir has written 20.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any more numbers? Any more numbers, guys? I mean, even if you don't have a top of the mind number, you can guesstimate, if not speculate. Any other numbers that you think of? How many people in your organization actually question the status quo? Questioning does not mean disagreements. Questioning means, okay, you are trying to challenge the way things are happening to bring in whatever improvement or change or what you think is right or get things going.
There's another response.
Yeah.
Rohit Kanthalia sir from SVITS has written 10% of the people.
Fantastic. Actually, research says it is less than 10%. Research says that people more so go with the way things are going. And in most of the Indian organizations as well, people find that the way things are going, people are more comfortable and nobody likes to question. And the reason why this is there is because there are 3-4 factors what this research also says. One factor, and I think HR guys struggle with it more, is setting up accountabilities in an organization. People don't want to be accountable more because they feel if I try to question, I mean, I'm going to be made responsible for it. So that's one reason why people back out. Second is the level of risk taking. The risk appetite in most of the organizations is where people don't question is also an element of risk. Third is a lot of people feel the organization readiness is currently not there, or in terms of the leadership maturity, which is not there. So these are primarily reasons what research says where we don't want to question the status quo. Now, the biggest and the best of the organizations which have taken rapid growth have always been when there is an atmosphere of openness, when there is a challenge. Challenge doesn't mean that you question everything that is happening. So there is a method to it, there is a science to it on how the questioning can be used positively in an organization. So that's where one area which I just wanted to highlight, and I'll connect it to tell you why some of these areas, when we see, don't really seem to be happening for us and why it's a challenge for us today. Similarly, what percentage do you think are people in any sector? I mean, whether you say sports, leadership, whether you say service sector, whether you say manufacturing sector, where you find people giving extraordinary results, breakthrough results happening. What percentage of people do you think in any Indian sector, or let's say global for a minute right now, right? Forget about India. Let's look at a global scenario. What percentage of people do you think are able to do extraordinary breakthrough results in organizations? Any guess on percentage? And what I'm quoting numbers are research-based numbers for you. Any idea? Extraordinary results, something like what Roger Bannister did in the late 40s, or what Jack Welch did later on, or what Edison did much later on, or you have so many sports personalities. Even if you look at sports, let's say Sachin Tendulkar, Dravid, what percentage of people do you think are there in the field of cricket in India?
We have a response. Rana Pathak ma'am has said 2%.
Okay, any other number?
DN Mehta sir has said just 5%.
Okay.
Preman Sharma sir says less than 5%.
Okay, okay. That's right. The research says that is people who produce extraordinary breakthrough results is always less than 3%. Right? Now, if God has created all human beings the way we are, in terms of any evolution, any science, I mean, what is it that a Sachin Tendulkar or a Virat Kohli has different in him? Does he have an extra part or something extra in his brain that they are able to produce some extra breakthrough result which others are not? So that is a question, not in this session, but I leave it with you. So that is again something which we need to know, that always if there is something which has to happen, which has to be drastic, which has to bring great results, it is always less than 3% people who are influencing. And the best part is, you know, if you look around you, the entire economy of the world, including when it comes to India, the percentage is even lesser. But the entire economy of the world is controlled by only 3% people. 3% people control the economy of the world, and the rest of the people are just running around after these 3% people, probably just looking for the salary check at the end of the month. So that's what is happening, and that holds good for the world. Okay, last question for this before I move, and to get the context right for you, that what percentage of people in India know that GDP and per capita income and where we stand in relative comparison today? What do you think? What's the awareness in our country on where do we stand? Is it high, low? You can say it's very high, or you can say 40% people, 50% people know. Everybody knows. You know, where we stand in terms of GDP and per capita. What do you think would be the awareness in our country? What percentage of people know really what do this mean? Because these numbers matter a lot to us. Yeah.
Asmita Dubey ma'am has written 20%. Dr.
Okay.
Rana Pathak ma'am has written 10%.
Fantastic. So do you notice that a lot of these things which are very essential for growth, essential for everyone to know, but the numbers are very less, and these numbers again are true. In fact, today I was reading in the news shorts that Bangladesh has actually crossed us on the per capita income. I don't know how many of you really like that. I mean, it's good for Bangladesh. I'm happy for them. But I mean, Bangladesh was created as a part of India sometime later, and today they are ahead of us on a per capita income, right? So that's where it is. I mean, it's a part of what was East Bengal and West Bengal. Now, forget about comparing only West Bengal with Bangladesh. I mean, Bangladesh has moved ahead on per capita compared to the entire India, right? So that speaks a lot about, you know, why does it happen? Why does it happen like this? And last question is, what percentage of people in any sector has leaders, managers who speak out in meetings, right? So by now, I think if you go by the trend, you would have guessed again, this number happens to be again less than 10%. So this time I'll give you the answer. So most of these areas which are drivers, which create things and results around us, the percentage of people around us is very, very less. So a pointer which I want to leave with you is, why is it so? And then we'll get into an area for the same reasons why you have answers for this. A very low percentage of people influencing it is why, you know, areas like safety get impacted. Some more set of factual data, which is the presented data which you may be aware of, you know, like our economic survey says, you know, that most of the people are actually there in the unorganized sector. About almost 83% lie in the unorganized sector, which is farming or rural areas or a whole lot of other areas, right? Which is a very high number. Our national education policy, actually 2020, which is in the process of rollout, you know, one of the biggest things that they have picked up is we are saying that we want to make India a global knowledge superpower, whatever it means, because the rules and actions that have to come out of it is not clear. But if I look at where we stand on GDP, where we stand on per capita, definitely there is a lot more to be done. If we are talking of a global knowledge superpower, we need to know where we stand. in terms of global competitive index, we have actually slid down. We have moved from 58 to 68 rank. Again, I believe there is a change in this number. We have moved to probably 72 now. And if I look at the topmost reasons, what brings us down is our ability in the information technology communication area, the health score that we have. I mean, these numbers which I'm showing you is the rank that we hold amongst the countries, about close to 150 odd countries which were ranked. We are almost 100 plus on all these 4 parameters, which is why our rank goes almost close to 70, right? And I have highlighted skill as a rank. So we are talking of a very low GDP where that matters a lot. Don't go by the overall GDP, it is per capita income which really matters when we come as individuals, right? And similarly, when a conflicting target which we have, or a strategic target which we have, I would not say conflicting for the sake of using a word, or rather I would say a challenging target what we have is, when we say we want to make it a global knowledge superpower. So that is, if we are able to transform into a global knowledge superpower, the skill rank itself should move 50 ranks up. That is what really counts. And why I'm saying is because if you look at the top 4 people, Singapore, US, Hong Kong, there are 2 countries from Asia. It's not about Europe, it's not about US. There are 2 countries from Asia which are sitting there, and they are in the top 4, right, in the global competitive index. They are high on exactly these 4 parameters, whether it is health, skills, or even life expectancy. Right? In life expectancy of India, I don't know how many of you are aware, is already 69, right? Which is quite low, because we spend only about 1.5% of our GDP on healthcare, right? So these are some numbers which tells you that why we need a larger focus, larger thrust into doing what we are saying. So changing the skilling at this point of time for India is more of a need for survival and growth for us. Right? If you're not able to shift the needle now, it's going to be quite late for us, because right now is the right time, because we have a largest population which is of youngsters right now, right? So Indian economy is, as I've already shared with you, our per capita income is, we have 141 countries ahead of us. And just to give you a relative comparison, I mean, Singapore is around $68,000 compared to India, which is about just $2,169 on a per capita income basis. So that's the huge difference on a scale where these 2 countries stand. So when we say we are growing, let's have a perspective to per capita income, right? So skilling, why I'm focusing on this again, has been the biggest differentiator. And if you look at again the topmost countries in skilling, what they have done differently is worth studying, right? The topmost on skilling today are Singapore, Norway, Finland, Switzerland, Germany, US, and Denmark. If you all this data what I have shared with you is available on Google. There is nothing extraordinary what I'm sharing. It is just, I'm just trying to create a funnel for you for a betterment of understanding, right? Most of these countries who talk on skilling have a wonderful model on skilling and apprentice model. They are not talking of IITs, they are not talking of big doctors, they are just focusing on creating a funnel on skilling, and that is what has put them on where they are right now. So the model that are operating in these 5-6 countries are worth studying for replication for the country, if at all we are looking at getting there. So again, continue to focus on skilling. So we have a largest manpower in terms of young people. The world is aging. Japan average age is 45, Europe is 45 plus, US is also close to 40, even China is 35, 38 plus. India is the only country where 70% of your population even today is between 18 to 35. But how long? How long is that going to be there? So this is the best time, now or never, when if we skill these people, they carry you to a better old age. So that's the paradox. So a lot of people always comment and say, that maybe we don't have so much of manufacturing because India is not a manufacturing hub. We don't have skill set up. To be very honest, it's not true. Now, these are the splits where in India, the GDP contributes, manufacturing is barely 20%. But if I compare the topmost countries, Singapore, Japan, or entire European Union, they are close to the same, 4-5% here or there. Same goes for the contribution on service sector, same goes as a percentage of agriculture. So the split of our GDP in terms of whatever percentage contribution has got nothing to do with per capita income, which means if we purely make our case study on skilling the mass of youngsters that we have, we can really pull through the entire thing. So one more question to after the stats. Because all this change that we have to bring in, will only come when we are able to tell and bring awareness into people. So do you think people resist change? How many of you can just put yes, no in the chat box? And Anu, I'll need your help again to read out.
Sure, sir. How many people?
Resist change?
So could you repeat the question, please?
Do people resist change?
Resisting change.
Yep.
How many people do people resist change? Yes.
Yeah. You can say yes. No.
We have answers coming. There's a yes from Premansh sir, Premansh Sharma sir. Dr. Rana Pathak ma'am is saying no. Nasreen Ansari ma'am is saying yes. Sachin Chalisgaonkar sir, yes. Asmita Dubey ma'am, yes.
Okay. Would somebody who said no like to add? Why do you think no?
No is by Rana Pathak ma'am.
Anybody who said no, who would like to add why you said no? Anything in the chat box, or you want to unmute and say a couple of lines? I'm fine with that. Do you think people resist change? I mean, somebody said no, right?
Yes, Rana Pathak ma'am, would you like to explain why you said no?
Just 1-2 lines, or just put anything in the chat box, it's fine.
Okay.
Sir, I said no, and I guess people are okay and used to with the things going on around. So that's why they do not resist change.
Okay, so you feel they don't resist change because they have become very comfortable with the status quo?
Yes.
Okay, but then the resistance should be higher, no? If somebody is trying to bring in change?
Yes, actually resistance should be there, but unfortunately we don't see it around. We see people getting used to of it in a very short period of time instead of resisting.
Correct. No, why I asked you to also share is because these are some of the things which I wanted to bring out. Actually speaking, there is no resistance to change, right? Why I say that is, when we look at change, it is never the change which is resisted. It is always the implication or the impact of the change that we resist to, right? Change is never resisted. For instance, I believe so, Anu, what percentage of our group here would be a married lot?
Around 80%, I think.
Fantastic. So if I were to ask you, when you decided to marry, did you resist it? Maybe there is yes or no. Yeah. Yeah.
So would you like some replies?
I don't mind if people are saying yes, no, whatever. So a lot of people look forward to marriage, a lot of people don't. But technically speaking, you don't resist to the marriage. Now again, when you get into parenthood, did you welcome it or did you resist it? Or did you enjoy it? So the whole thing about change is when I know the implication of the change, when I know that my life might be more happier after marriage or after I get into parenthood, I actually don't resist the change. I welcome it, right? So a lot of people, the whole thing about change is when change is done by engaging people, by enrolling people, when they understand the implication of the change, the resistance actually is never there to the change, but it is always to the implication of the change. So the whole point that I'm saying is, you saw a whole lot of changes happen in the past. We saw industrial revolution. Now we are talking of industry 4.0. So a whole lot of things in the industry brought in productivity norms. Then somebody brought in quality. These are all the changes which happened. Then somebody said within quality, there is something called Six Sigma. There is something called Lean. Then new technology came in. From computerization, now we are talking of anything. We are talking of from anything to robots and robotics and virtual reality, and we are talking of intelligence, everything, right? So these are all new technologies. So once we have adapted to it, or we have understood that this technology is going to bring in something better, the resistance to change is not there. Probably initially when we felt computerization, it will take away a lot of jobs. So the resistance was for the loss of jobs, was not for against computerization. So that's what we need to understand. So one area which I have highlighted here in the revolution, and which the Labor Code 2020, which has come in, the law has been passed and the rules are being framed, a lot has been spoken on the occupational safety area. And that's the area which we'll be talking about. Now, this is again a very big change. Like I said, safety as an area, is highly not understood properly. People do it for the bare minimal thing, and the understanding not being there, we feel, it's being resisted to the core, where industry probably doesn't want it, whereas actually industry is demanding it. If we were to properly understand, make the industry understand that, that it is not about the high costs, all the same thing what we did for quality, technology, if the awareness is spread in the right way, safety goes through the same process of change. Today we are probably not as much bothered because we feel the cost of one life is not very high, right? But with COVID happening, suddenly we realize that it is not just my health, but also the health of my co-worker matters. So if I am going to be all healthy, but the people I am going to be working are not as healthy, it is going to impact me. So which means I need to be taking care of my entire environment on safety any which ways. Now, if you look at nature, nature has been trying to tell us that for many, many, many years, right? A very simple example is where most of us live in the urban side, most of the people live in buildings, right? You have apartments and buildings where you have 50 to 180, 100 to 100 flats. Now, suppose you have done the best of the fumigation and you've taken care that there are absolutely no cockroaches in your house. But then you have two neighbors on either side who are not doing anything. And let's say, for a sake of argument, their houses are infested with cockroaches. Do you think every protection that you do in your house is going to take care of anything in your house? So sooner or later you will be impacted. So a larger part of what we need to understand is, similarly, safety is something we cannot ignore, whether it is the worker who is constructing the building or it is your colleague, right? A lot of people connect safety only when fire happens, right? People connect safety with something, accident happens, right? So, but we fall short in understanding what really safety means, right? So, if I were to again ask a question to the group, right, can you name any list or the number of courses or programs in any academics, graduation, engineering, where you saw safety as a subject, and you can just type out whatever course that you heard of? If you can use the chat box, and Anu, can you help me, whatever people say?
Yes.
I mean, any name, any list of courses, how many did you hear? And where did you cover safety? Where in academics did we learn things about safety? In schooling, in secondary, college, or any program? Where did we learn, teach safety? I mean, wherever I graduated, I actually missed out. I mean, nobody taught me anything on safety. So,
Rohit Kantalia, sir, would you like to explain? He's written safety and reliability. Correct. But he's not written which stream he...
Yeah, I'm more interested in the stream. So you can either put the course name or the program, or if it was in the process while you were working, then yeah, it could be I don't know, then it's not academics. It's more to do with a learning program conducted by the HR or the training team or L&D teams in your organization. Or if you're in a factory, then your factory conducted it, or a factory head conducted it. So the fact remains, you may search and you may Google, and you can do it, but you will find these safety pay academic programs more coming in the West and European side. In the Indian scenario, it is hardly any which you will find. Yes, in the last 4 or 5 years, Some states have initiated at a state level. But at a central level, whether I say there is a proper AICT structure, there is none. If I say at a state level, if I were to look at a state level, the topmost states which are industrialized, which contribute a high content to my GDP, like Maharashtra, Gujarat, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, these four states, if I look at, yes, Maharashtra has some programs and Tamil Nadu has some programs. Other than that, nobody has any programs. So that's the state of safety, right? Now, the question to you is, safety is at home, safety is at manufacturing, safety is at hospitals, safety is at school, safety is at workplace, safety is at a process industry. When I say process, I mean chemical processes, right? You recently heard a lot of fire, burst, blast, all that happening. And people around that factory are in danger. So you also heard about the Bhopal gas tragedy, right? It is the world's second worst incident ever, and it happened in India. Then there is a safety on offshore. You recently had a cyclone and an entire barge in Bombay got drifted, and a few people died, and few are still not found, right? And there were more than 200 people on the barge, right? So that's also an offshore safety, right? Then safety while driving, safety while road, transport, logistics. So I have just named about the 10 few. Can you tell me any working area where safety is not required? Can you name any one area, anywhere, where safety is not required? Anyone? Because anything can happen in a school. We have had incidents. You had an incident in Gujarat where there was this coaching class which caught fire and 25 kids died. And it was there in the papers, right? It happened in Surat somewhere. And I don't know whether you also read about it, that there was one girl who survived in that fire. And you know the reason why she survived? The only reason why she survived was when she was in school, there was some educational program which happened in the school where some fire expert had come, and all he said was, it's a normal thing whenever smoke happens. Like first thing he told was, people don't die because of fire, people die because of the smoke that happens. Number one. Number two, he said smoke always rises on top. So when the smoke rises on top, the air above will always have less oxygen in it, and it will be more on carbon monoxide. So the best way, if you don't have any place to escape, is to lie down on the ground, if possible, hold a cloth to your nose and face, and preferably if you can wet the cloth, even if you spit on it, it's fine, right? If it's a wet cloth, and just wait there and lie down until somebody comes to save you. This is the only and only thing that you can do if you don't have an exit path to any situation when you are fired. And this girl knew this, and can you believe it? 25 boys and girls who tried to jump off the building all died. This girl survived. What was the reason for survival? One small piece of information, one piece of education which happened when she was at the school. What difference did it make? Life and death, right? So what I'm trying to tell you is there is absolutely no place where safety is not involved, but this is one element in the curriculum which is absolutely missing. And the difference that this education can make is about a life and a death. And I can go on and tell you so many instances, right? I am not a safety professional. I'm in the sense that, okay, now I can say I'm even qualified for a lead audit or a 45,001 standard or many things, because we have been working on this for the last 5-6 years, and it is becoming a passion to work on safety, right? But when I was in the industry, I mean, this was not even there on my mind. When I was in school, college, or in any sector that I was, I mean, nobody came and talked about as much on safety. But in the last 5-7 years, we've been seeing a lot of change, and we are seeing a lot of awareness around. But this has to go up drastically. This has to change. This has to bring in a lot of information and awareness, and this has to become part of the curriculum everywhere, every sector, because there is no place where safety is not involved, right? So and this is just on a glimpse or a snapshot what I'm trying to tell you. When I say occupational safety, it primarily gets broken down into 4. What I said is EHS, environmental safety, health safety. Then you have safety as a whole, which also I'll talk about. Environment safety is, people talk of energy management, waste management, water management, greenhouse gases, your renewable energy. There is something called life cycle management in the place that we live, right? Now this environment management, we are still probably, I would say, way behind. Health management, COVID is the best example. Then very little we do on health tracking still. There is something called hazard management, audit. How many of you are aware that how many of your hospitals actually get audited? Now you would have seen many surprises happening, right? Internationally, there is a standard that every big hospital needs to have 3 lines of oxygen, right? That there are supposed to be 3 pipelines of oxygen connected to the bed, not just ICU. One which comes from the oxygen plant, which is there in the premises of the hospital. Second line comes as a redundancy plan, which has to come from an oxygen cylinder bank, just in case the oxygen plant conks off. Third line is supposed to be an emergency line if the pressure falls. Now, based on whatever that you have been hearing in the news or seeing around in your place of work or stay, how many hospitals in India or in your town or area did you find have 3 lines of oxygen in the hospital? Right? I mean, if you're answering in the chat box, great, but very, very rare or none. Now, if I were to tell you, it's a simple piece of information. World has been doing it. There's an international standard on it, on how it has to be done. India is a signatory to that standard, but we are not aware. We did not bother. We did not do it, right? And even today, there is no guideline which mandates a hospital to have its own oxygen plant. The ROI of an oxygen plant is not even 1 year for a hospital. Probably 10 heart patients can pay for the cost of 1 oxygen plant in a hospital. It's less than 1 CR. But look at the impact that you have had outside right now. Now, yes, we are dousing fire. We can't do much about it right now. But whatever we do now is like working on a fire mode. But that is what is health management. Now, that curriculum and part is part of occupational safety, right? How many of you are aware that suppose you worked even in a R&D lab or any company, say for 2 years or 3 years. Now, if your workplace was say next to a dumping yard, right? Now, I'm just sharing this as an information to you, but what I'm sharing you is by course of a law, and that law is actually applicable even in India, okay? Now, let's say whatever is your workplace, right? And it is just next to a dumping yard, okay? Now, over a period of working 2 years in the place, and you left that place of work, and you moved on to another job, maybe even in another city. But subsequently, when you moved and after 2 years of moving to the place, you developed respiratory symptoms like asthma and other allergies, right? And when you did your allergen study, you found that there was something in the air which you could have contracted when you were working here. Are you aware that you can actually claim from that company the damage that it has caused on your health? And this is by law you can. I'm sure 80% of the audience, without even asking you, are not aware. Right? Maybe some of you who have worked on the IR side and have faced some cases of these types may be aware, but in India, when the worker himself is not aware of it or any employee himself is not aware of something like this, the chance of you getting a claim is also less. But by law, the person providing me the employment, and most of you are HR people, go back to your books, you will find you are accountable to the employee even if he has left the organization and has contracted a disease which has proved to have happened in the workplace. The organization is responsible and he can be held accountable for compensation. Okay, this is by law and this applies. Okay, but the awareness being low, not done. Okay, coming to the other vertical which I have marked in red, which I would rather say spend more time on. In understanding is safety is again understood by a lot of people is only when fire happens. Fire is one element of it, and again in fire there is industrial fire, there is transport fire, there is residential fire, there is office commercial building fire, there is warehouse fire. You can have fire in a manufacturing setup. It could be a oil pump, it could be a oil storage tanks, it could be schools, hospital, or a mining setup. Now fire safety is so big, right? how many of you are aware what is the kind of fire system hierarchy that we have in our country? Who is responsible? Which department, which ministry is responsible for fire? Any idea? You can quickly put in the chat box if you're aware. Quickly. If you're, or you can just say not aware or no. I'm fine with that as well. How many of you are aware? Anyone, Anu?
Not yet, sir. Sir, your slide is, it's the older slide which is showing.
Wait a second. Can you see occupational safety chart with 4?
No, sir.
Okay, I think it's got stuck. Then wait, let me.
Yes, now we can see.
Now you can see this. Okay, this is the one which I was doing. Can you see it now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I think it got stuck. Okay, so this is what I was trying to explain. So are you aware that the fire safety rolls up to which ministry, or where does it roll up to? Who is responsible for fire safety in our country? Which ministry, which department? Any idea, anyone? Who is responsible? Like suppose we have people are admitted to hospital, the hospital gets dumped by fire. There have been 3 fire incidents in Bombay, Maharashtra area itself. So I'm not aware of other states, but there were huge ones. People who were admitted for treatment expired just because of fire, not because of the ailment. But who is responsible? Who is accountable? You remember I asked about accountability some time back? So let me answer the question. If there are no answers in the chat box, there is no.
Yes,
Yeah, there is
Shantam
one.
sir has replied.
Yeah, who's responsible?
Home Affairs.
Home Affairs, right. So great. So in the HRD ministry, there is something called like a advisor or a senior advisor who is there to the HRD. So there is not even a minister or a senior level minister or a person who is responsible, right? And I'll just tell you what is the damage that this country faces on because of these fire accidents, right? But there is not even a junior minister responsible for fire. It's only a senior advisor. You will be even more surprised to check who is responsible at the state level, right? In Gujarat, it is urban ministry. In Maharashtra, it is urban too. Somebody who is responsible for urban development is responsible for fire, which is outside the scope of HRD, right? And some states, they just don't have anyone, right? The state level acts on fire is supposed to be responsible, not a central level act. So Maharashtra itself passed it, I think, somewhere in 1963 or 69, right? Subsequent to it, Gujarat passed. So not even all states have a proper act on fire, right? So that's where we are right now, right? This is about India, right? So welcome to India, if you are not aware of any of these, okay? So this is where we are, and this is where we are losing a lot of people. This is where we don't get growth, and these are the areas which we don't understand, and these are the areas why we are falling short on our competitive index. Okay, similarly, let's move to industrial safety. Here the score is slightly better, but little poor, because industrial safety has still been bucketed under the labor ministry, where there is somebody who is supposed to do the audit, whether he physically does the audit or the way things happen, the guy will come, the officer will come, and the way things would get managed with him, but then that's the reality. But he has been made responsible. Now, unfortunately, he is supposed to take care of your labor on labor disputes. So the time goes more there, and there is very little work where he actually does or can do any audits. So technically, there is nobody who does audits on industrial safety, on compliance. Our compliances on this area is totally left to the individual companies. So internationally, companies find it very difficult to partner in India. Either they have to do it fully, or they will not take any responsibility. They will set up some local company to take care of it. That's the way work happens. When we did the metro project, we were compulsorily supposed to partner with an international firm, because the idea was to bring in the safety standards which we were not aware of. And the things they demanded really surprised a lot of the companies which were doing projects here. So chemical safety, I mean, blasts in any of these companies, every month there is one wherever you have a chemical sector. You talk of any sector in Bombay, there is a blast almost virtually every month which happens. Offshore incidents, I just told you about a recent barge, right? Pharma, there is less because you have FDA approvals and FDA audits which happen. So wherever there are these audits which happen, reportings which taken care of, road safety, your numbers are available with you, you can check. right? And the only bodies in the country, and there was a clue, maybe Shantam picked up from here, that there is a Ministry of HRD which drives the NFS Nagpur, right? And as a country, we have something called DG Fastly, but let me tell you, it is supposed to be the only advisory body, right? So they actually don't get into training people or doing audits, nor certifying people as much. Although they do run a program at DG Fastly, but it's like a namesake program because they are an advisory body. They don't have any accountability of training and certifying people or graduating people to do safety. They're an advisory body. National Safety Council does audits primarily for PSUs. So again, there is no accountability to train and certify people. So the whole point is then who is responsible? Are we as individuals and individual citizens responsible for our safety and all the types of safeties that we are in? Right? Who is responsible? And if I tell you, I hope the slide has moved to the next one. Anu, you can see the next slide on the global scenario. Hello? Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Now it has moved. Earlier it was the same, but now it has moved.
Now it has moved. Okay. I think when I do it on slideshow, sometimes it is not moving. Okay. So if you look at the global scenario, this is data presented by ILO, right? International Labour Organization. About 337 million people, right, are injured in accidents, right? These are 1-2 year behind numbers, right? Not really great shakes numbers. Okay. So globally, of whatever accidents and injuries that happen, Asia is the highest contributor, where Asia accounts for 2/3. And within Asia, guess who is the highest contributor? Yes, our own India, right? So we are the highest contributor, #1 on accidents, right? Not something to be very proud of, but that's true for us, right? So there's very little we do in terms of measuring the direct costs or indirect costs associated with it. Indirect costs, when I say, I mean, that's a preventive measure experience. So we don't even measure it. So we don't even know the total amount that we are losing in monetary terms, right? So I hope you're seeing the next slide now. Okay, I think I'll do this every time otherwise. So in India, safety is right now least practiced because we still have a chalta hai kind of an attitude. A good thing on the horizon is you have a Labour Code 2020 where the bill has been passed in the parliament, but rules are awaited. It's been more than 12 to 18 months where the rules have not come. Hopefully, which they should see the light of the day in 2021. So that's on the anvil. So we are on the cusp of a change which can be made really fruitful for the country, provided we are able to train and get good talent in this area, so that we can really be, I mean, if we are able to reach highest level of success or a breakthrough success, the 10% people success, for that we have to be the supplier of quality, trained, certified people in safety for the world. I would say that would be a breakthrough thing to talk about, right? Because right now, I mean, we are ourselves struggling with what we call as safety, right? So occupational safety is not something which is there, right? And from an Indian context, if you look at it, this is the opportunity. We are going to be a talent surplus by 2030, right? So only by way of skilling is what we can do a lot, right? So this is one area which we have to get into, because by 2035 is the window. From now to 2035 is the only window which we have to work on skilling and work on the area of safety. Why I say that? Because by 2035, a good chunk of your young people will start getting old. And the paradox is all youngsters now want to retire rich, right? But if they don't work on various elements of skilling, that's very difficult to happen. Okay. So slightly moving ahead. So this is what is the fire scenario. Are you able to see this slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So this is the fire safety scenario, or occupational health and safety, particularly the fire safety scenario. There is only one college established by the HRD ministry till date, and which was done in 1956, the National Fire Service College, right? It is as old as that. They have stopped even taking basic level programs now because there is a dearth of faculty for them. They only do long-term programs. They have funny rules. The course they teach is not accredited under either UGC, AICTE, or any accreditation body. So they follow their own curriculum. They follow their own certification. So when it comes to even recruitment for a fire service station, so they will come up with a qualification to say that I need a pass out only from here. So difficult to get in, lower availability, scarcity of resource, everything is possible in this area, right? But that's how we are structured. Fortunately, unfortunately, whether we like it or not. So today, if there are private companies like Airtel or an L&T, and if they want to hire a fire safety resource, sorry, there is none available. Because the state fire safety team itself is short of people and talent, and nor do they have trainers to train. So that's the reality. So incident will keep rising. In fact, to the extent when there were last incidents, the fire department in Bombay was asked that why did the hospital get fire? The head of fire safety in Mumbai, Maharashtra Fire Service, actually he lost his job. Another guy was given a charge and he was supposed to come with a circular on new things, but there is very little we can do about it. There is also something called NBC 2016, which very few people are aware, which talks of National Building Code and what all needs to be there. The level of awareness is pathetically low, right? We are talking of competing and getting onto global index with the world, but these are all the opportunities where some basics need to be fixed because there is no education in this area. There is no training in this area, there is no certification in this area, but definitely there is a need which is there in the industry for these kind of qualified people, and it is present across every sector. Globally, the worldwide recognized organizations which are spoken about in the fire safety area is like NFPA US or the British Safety Standards of UK. They have a global name. I mean, when they give a stamp, they give a stamp and incidents don't happen. Right? So that's the kind of reputation they have. Today, we don't even have an institution to call and say, you know, if this institution has done an audit, you know, nothing will go wrong here. So tomorrow, if I were to tell you that, you know, I'm sorry, just for the sake of an example, don't take it seriously, that suppose you fall sick and you have to get admitted to an hospital, and at the entry board, there is a big board saying, we just had a fire last week, but we are still looking out for people who can be trained in, you know, zero fire maintenance. How motivated are you to get admitted into such a hospital? I mean, just imagine if you don't even have a choice of a bed in the hospital, and that is the kind of board outside. So that's the situation which we are living in. Sorry if I have used an exaggerated example, but somewhere it's true to some extent. Okay, so but that's the reality. I'm just trying to highlight your point, because sometimes when you understand the implication of the need for something at a disgusting level, things happen, right? So that's the only reason for giving such an example, but that's the opportunity. So just to share with you a model which we are working, and we are trying to engage institutions as well as industry onto that. Can we create a global level center of excellence where, you know, these things can be called as a complete setup being there. There is a physical infrastructure which is created, which teaches people of every stream, every area, every aspect of safety. Where something like this, like the picture what you're seeing, and I'll share with you who is doing it and what all. A beginning has been done where a company has started doing it. A couple of companies have started doing it. L&T is the first one. But they are still falling short, and they do it primarily only as a captive thing for their own resources. That too, only 20-30% of their resources are able to utilize something like this. So there's a complete indoor bay walkthrough which teaches people everything about safety. Right from there is a reason why you see a yellow line and green line there, and there is a purpose why these are drawn, right? Similarly, there are the various aspects of safety, whether it is fire safety or whether it is road safety. I mean, I told you what are the various types of safety, right? So it could be anything from site, crane, material handling, everything, right? So complete training on environment, a model is created where how ETP is your all waste and waste to water kind of projects which are there. Now, some things are happening in the country in bits and pockets. What we are saying is create a center of excellence where this can be created in a setup, right? So people can see it, people can understand the implication of bringing in that change in their locality, in their workplace, so that it really impacts the society in a larger way, right? So what is called as a green site, green building, this kind of a concept is made understood at an academic level early on. The change can bring in much faster. I believe so that this kind of education has to be done at an undergraduate level, right? So the next generation brings in. It's easier to change children or the younger people who are, yet to be corrupted in their minds, rather than older people like us who have lots of huge mindsets to deal with, right? So we are talking of creating a fantastic center of training, right? Where people can come, stay, live there for a week, right? From trainings from week to months to a year, something like programs can be done. I mean, they have all kind of engagement and everything is possible. Now you would feel, why would a corporate want to invest and participate, right? What's the popular word like HR lingo, what I would say the WIFM, as we say, what's in it for me, right? So a typical why, because it's a global brand showcasing. If we are saying we want to be competitive in the world, there is no other way to tell people in the world that I have a best practice which I can showcase. Like a lot of people in HR, when you work in your organizations, don't you do this? Don't you create a roadshow where you want to showcase? Don't you make a presentation which tells these are the best practices that we have created? So I'm saying at a country level on the safety side, why can't we create a setup which is a center of excellence which kind of showcases and brings you onto a global competitive level, right? That's what will encourage even corporates to participate in it, because you are giving them a window to interact with the world. Similarly, manufacturing setups which are, are still dependent on outsourced workers, right? And none of these outsourced workers are certified. Now, if I were to tell you the highest infrastructure resources, like you see this power sector which is expanding, the gas pipeline sector which is expanding, if I were to give you a guess of a half a second to tell where do these people come from, India is divided between two parts. One is the payer and other is the supplier states. Gujarat, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu are like the buyer or the people who pay, the payer states. And maximum resources will come from West Bengal, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Orissa. These four states have become the major supplier states. And you pick the sector, it is true for all sectors. Okay? So why not look at these place of origin where people get trained and certified in the first place at source level, right? So there is a proper availability. If I were to even tell you in transmission projects, whether it is L&T, whether it is Kalpataru, whether it is any company, right, Sterlite or any projects company, they go to one place in West Bengal called Malda, right? And they'll go recruit people from there only. And there are road shows which are done in a place called Malda, right? And all contracts are done. Now they are even taking projects in Africa. People from Malda travel to Africa and do the projects. Not sure how many of you are aware, but that's true for India, right? Most of the places in any city where you look for a plumber, right, you will find a lot of people from Orissa. Even I'm sure in MP and these places, you will find a lot of people from Orissa working as plumbers. Now, what is it that about Orissa that it is producing plumbers? It is just that it has happened, right? Similarly, you have carpenters, a lot of them come more from Rajasthan area, right? Or some places in UP. So that is how the sectoral development has happened. But if we have this center of excellence kind of a thing, where a sector-wise areas of education can be done, right? There is a huge gap in the industry as well as what we say, what is required. So there is no world-class center for occupational health and safety. L&T, Siemens are the only two companies which have really gone ahead and set up. There are others which are doing it. But it is not a compulsion. They are doing it more like where they see there as a need. Okay. So we feel, even from a compliance perspective, and if we have to truly implement the Labor Code 2020 in true sense, setting up centers of excellence, we don't need one. We probably need to start with one in every state and then probably take it to a larger level. Right. Similarly, the whole idea is if you have trained staff available, there will be cost optimization, not cost increase. Yes, initial cost of training, there will be increase, but the amount of wastage and the cost that you will save from accident, attrition, material cost, wastages, people cost will compensate for the entire thing. right? There is likely to be high retention, better quality of output. So that's where we feel fills in for the cost requirement. Similarly, if we are able to cross this barrier, we can really talk of being the future global workforce coming from India. Now, can India do it? Is a question mark. Should we do it? It's a huge opportunity, right? So we can be a supplier of choice for the globe, right? So when it comes, particularly, definitely we can do it in the safety. So that's all what I had to present. So that was the time that was available with me. Open to any questions.
Thank you, sir. Very enlightening. We have a couple of questions. You can unmute if you like. Shraddha ma'am, you've raised your hand. And Mandeep ma'am would like to ask something.
Excuse me, ma'am. I had a question earlier, but not now. So my query has been solved. Thank you so much. I had raised the hand earlier. Thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you, sir. It has been an excellent, hour of learning, and we were not aware of, so many safety things. So thank you, sir, for your.
Welcome. Do write to us anytime you have any queries. And the first step to any change is awareness. Like I said, we strongly believe people don't resist change. It is only, when you know what impact it can do to you or around you, you will welcome the change. So the
Yes, sir.
first
Yes, sir.
step to
Very
that is
rightly said.
awareness. So
Yes, sir.
today's
Very rightly
awareness should
said,
help
sir.
you. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Once again, thank you so much.
Welcome.
All the participants, please, if you can write your questions in the chat box.
Yes, please.
And Director sir, respected Dr. George Thomas sir, would you like to throw some light or discuss some topic, please?
I can only say I just joined a few minutes back. So it was the way Mr. Mohan Kamath ji was presenting, I could make out that it was quite an insight, and the awareness level is still to be developed. So I think it would be a great opportunity for all of us that whatever you have shared, the participants must have gathered so much content about the fire safety and all. So once again, on behalf of the ISTD Indore chapter, I thank you, sir, for sparing your valuable time, and we'll be troubling you in future also for
Anytime.
like our institute, SVIM and Vaishnav Vidyapeeth Vishwavidyalaya, where such knowledge students should also get it, and that awareness can be disseminated through your experience, and you can showcase your ideas. You can inspire them also in future.
Definitely. Anytime.
So once again, Mohanji, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So over to Dr. Anu.
Thank you, sir. GMP Rao sir, would you like to add something, please, sir?
Sir, kindly unmute yourself, please. Rao, sir.
Rao sir, please unmute yourself, please.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Rao sir, please unmute your mic. It's still mute. We are not able to hear you.
Oh,
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
okay. Mr. Mohan Kamath has given very vast knowledge on fire and safety. But actually, I feel how the practical applications on the ground floor, demonstrations, and actually when the fire takes place, how it can be extinguished, and the various types of fires and various types of fire extinguishers, and actually it's practical side. Practically, demonstration should be there, and
Yes.
it is because it is a lot of information. This is all theoretical information, but then this theoretical information, how it can be applied on the shop floor or on the ground floor, that demonstration need to be given, and
Absolutely.
need to be given at the not only the supervisory manager and actually those who are working on the shop floor, they should be given such knowledge. I mean, practical knowledge. They should be on the shop floor, on the ground floor. It should be demonstrated and it should be done by them.
True.
When it is done by them, that confidence will be there in case of any emergencies, how it can be tackled.
True. Sir, I would like to add one more thing to what you said. You rightly said it has to be practically done, and the whole thing is about even setting up a culture. Like internationally, the way it happens is, even if there is a CEO who joins an organization and he goes through a normal induction where every function, one by one gives the induction. The last induction is given by the safety guy, right? It is not that the safety is less important. Only reason why the safety is last, and there is a last slide to it, that you might have achieved your sales target, you might have achieved your business goals, you might have achieved every goal. But if the safety target is not achieved, right, only thing we do is we get a new CEO. That's the last slide which is given to the CEO. So that is an international norm which is being followed. We are yet to reach there. But one thing which we do or can do is, there is a scientific process called risk assessment, which is done to every area of workplace. If that is done, the situation of fire or an incident does not occur. Now that responsibility lies more with the managers and the leaders of the place, not just the workforce. So if they take care of the situation, that the preventive elements are taken care of, definitely when that is coupled that with the people being trained on the shop floor, we'll have zero incidents. So both the things need to happen. Training on the shop floor plus training the managers on prevention.
It is quite a lot of information you have given, sir. Thank you very much. But again, I feel ultimately the soldiers who fight in the war front, that matters very much. So similarly, the workforce, they should be very well trained and enlightened on these aspects.
Right, sir.
Yes, Dr. Anu, what is next?
Thank you, sir. I would now request Mr. Premant Sharma to please propose the words of thanks.
Thank you, Anu ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Before starting my word of thanks, I remember some great words of John F. Kennedy. I used to remember that he said once, as we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. With these words, I think and I hope that today all the participants got a great opportunity to enrich themselves with the wonderful words of Sri Mohan Kamath ji. And I must personally say, an excellent presentation. Thank you so much, sir. On behalf of ISTD Indore chapter, I would like to express vote of thanks to Mr. Kamath for giving his valuable time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I would also like to express my thanks to Dr. Upinder Dhar, sir, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Shri Vaishnav Vidyapeeth Vishwavidyalaya Indore, who continuously inspired and motivated us for organizing such webinars. I would like to thank Dr. George Thomas, Chairperson, ISTD Indore chapter, and Director, Shri Vaishnav Institute of Management. Without his active leadership and guidance, it could not be possible. I would like to thank Dr. Santosh Dhar, Madam, National Council member from ISTD Indore chapter, and Dean FDSR Shri Vaishnav Vidyapeeth Vishwavidyalaya for her continuous guidance and motivation for promoting and organizing this webinar. I would like to thank Dr. Anu Kande, Secretary ISTD Indore chapter, for her efforts and continuous hard work, which made today's webinar successful. Last but not the least, I would like to thank Mr. Shantam Sharma and all the managing committee members of ISTD Indore chapter who helped us for organizing this webinar. Finally, I would like to thank all the participants, all the seniors, members of the ISTD Indore chapter for their active participation. Thank you all.
I
Thank
would
you so
like to
much.
add. I would like to add here that Mr. Mohan Kamaji, this is the first webinar series that we have started, and you are the first person. You will always be remembered that we started with your deliberation.
Thank you so
in the
much.
lecture.
Thank you so
And
much.
I would like to, apologize from VC sir and Dhar madam, because we all were in the meeting parallelly going on with the trust committee members. So I could take the opportunity to leave from there, and I just wanted to listen to you for some time if I get the time. So once again, we hope that this webinar series will be remembered as
Thank you.
not only first but the content also, because I wanted to share, when you were talking, I was remembering these days you come to know in the news when you see that lot many hospital are having these fire issues.
True.
So it is really a very important aspect. Safety aspect is not even considered.
True.
And another part is the cost also,
True.
because I share my experience with when I joined here. So AICT imposed the condition that you have to get the NOC from the fire safety, then only you will be given the extension of approval. So they have made it mandatory.
True.
But we have done the NOC and all. We got the approval, but the actual part, the placing of the, gadgets on the safe places. Our building is quite open, and most of the places you have this fire extinguisher placed.
True.
But no such training, and like our security guards, they should be given training. So I got the idea from now, when the this COVID goes, I would approach the this fire department, invite them to give us the training. Like all of us should get the training in case of fire, how we can safeguard the property as well as the human life. So that is very much needed. So you have really inspired us. So this is not going to be just a lecture. We are going to practice it, as Mr. GMP Rao also insisted कि theoretical के साथ साथ practical होना बहुत जरूरी है. We should learn.
100%.
आज हमको भी नहीं मालूम वो कैसे फायर एक्सटिंग्विशर, एकदम अगर आग लगेगी तो उसको खोलेंगे कैसे. ग्राउंड रियलिटी तो यही है. और घर में भी अगर फायर हो गया तो समझ में नहीं आता, पानी डालेंगे, ये करेंगे, कैसे होगा. तो ये एक एक बच्चे को भी पता होना चाहिए, हमको भी पता होना चाहिए. Everybody should know. I think we lack, मतलब seriously we lack in this direction. This is a survival skill also, in a way. Safety, organizational safety तो important है ही है. Normal life में भी बंदे को पता होना चाहिए कि अगर आग लग गई तो हमें क्या करना है.
True.
So thank you very much, Mohan ji.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
I request, there is a lot of information given by Mr. Kamath. This, whatever the slides was shown, it is quite informative. Every time I find that so much of presentation material is there. Why not you just give it on your WhatsApp or
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. It is recorded.
Because
we are recording every lecture now. We will be sending those who request that we want the lecture. We can send the video recording.
Yeah.
The recording you can listen. Yes.
No, in hard copies also, can we get hard copy?
Sure.
We will try. We will try, sir.
Because it is a lot of information. Just by listening, it won't do. If we have that information in a hard copy, then we can see from time to time. For example, now this Mr. Kamath has given so much information, so many of fire and safety, so many types of safety, chemical safety, the other things. So many material are there. So if we have that, from time to time, we can see that what all types of fire and safety material is there. Please supply that.
Sure.
You can, Mr. Kamath, you can share the
I'll do that.
material. We will send the copy of the same to all the respective members.
Definitely, we'll do that.
Dr. Anu, just record this so that we
Sure,
can,
sir.
when the whatever request is coming, we can fulfill it in due course of time.
So we have done the recording, and hopefully we'll be able to upload it on the YouTube channel as well of ISTT Indore chapter. So
Right.
we will share the links as soon as we can. In the meantime, I request all the participants to please check the chat box. There is a link for feedback. So you can fill the link till tonight, 12 midnight, and it's for certificate of participation. So all of you can please fill the feedback form. And it was, sir, indeed very informative session and very interactive session. So I'm so thankful that you could take out time and share your expertise and your knowledge and your thinking, the experiences you've gained and some insights into the academics of safety. So I hope that a lot will come out from this webinar, and we'll be able to come up with nice some syllabi as well.
Great.
And it'll be great if we can hear you again very soon.
Sure. Let
Thank
me
you so
know.
much, sir.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you so much once again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all for joining.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Dr. Anu.
Thank you, sir.
And we must thank Shantam sir also
Yes, sir.
for making this possible, and for the next resource person we start working on it. So we will announce the next resource. Thank you, Shatamji.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thank
sir.
you, thank
It
you,
was
thank
really
you.
really good listening to him.
Yeah. He was
If
very
you have-
knowledgeable.
Yes. If you have the next resource person in line, you can share with us in due course of time. So we'll
Yeah,
start
sure.
promoting. And the response was also good. Like participants were, I think 65.
Yes, sir.
अच्छा एक audience भी था इसमें.
Yes, certainly we'll have the next session when we want to do on the
It-
third Saturday, है ना?
Third Saturday, yes, as we discussed.
Yeah. So let me see if such type of another person is there who is more practical actually. Those people who had worked in the industry and then they had worked in the industry at a senior level. So those people can actually give more insights.
Yes. And it is going to be very helpful for like all of us. Rather than conceptual ideas, we should have practical, implementable aspects can be shared. As GMP Rao sir shared that कि practical ground reality different होता है, तो हम लोगों को practical भी मिल जाए, exposure भी मिल जाए, जो अभी जरूरत है, मतलब इन vogue में जो topic हो तो उनको देख के, and we'll all work it out. आप भी देख लीजिए, है ना, share करिएगा.
Yes, sure.
Okay then.
Thank you.
Shall we? Yeah. Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. Shall
Thank
we
you.
leave the meeting then? Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Thank you everybody.
Thank you.